Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this session. I trust you've had a great day so far, and trust you've been having getting value from all of the sessions during this virtual conference. Let me see how many people do we have here. Okay, I guess more people will be joining in soon. It's 1 minute past 12. Thank you again for joining Adedoyin Esther, Comfort, Grace, Obaseki Samuel, Peter Alabi. Thank you all for joining. Great to have you all here again. Our speaker for today is on standby, just waiting for a few more people to join in, and then we'll go right in. We'll be looking at building a high-performing organizational culture for this session, and to be taken by Tunde Success Oshideko. I'll be introducing him in a few minutes and then handing over to him. But before then, let's just see how many people we have here. How many of you were in the first session? Trust you had a great time learning from Benga Jomali. Talking about redefining productivity and building resilience. Trust that you found that insightful as well. And I trust that definitely this one will be another value bomb, like I like to say. And we learn a lot of things from this session and then apply it on our jobs and then take our organizations forward to achieve better business outcomes. Thank you, Popola Akola Wale, for joining. And for those joining via YouTube, thank you. You're welcome. It's great having you all here. Like we said in the morning session, we are halfway through the conference. We've actually done 16 sessions now, 14 sessions more to go, starting with this one. Almost feels like we should not end this, like we should run it through the end of the year, but it's been great learnings and awesome speakers that we've had. And this one would not be any difference. Okay. Let's meet our speaker for today. So like I mentioned, we're building a high-performing organization culture. It will be taken by Tunde Success Oshideko. So let's meet our speaker for today. Tunde Success Oshideko is the Senior Manager of Performance Management with the biggest telecommunications network in Africa. That's MTN Nigeria. He is an internationally certified human resources professional with about 15 years of experience in human resources, with an advantage of cross-functional and multi-sectoral exposure across various industries such as banking, HR consulting, non-governmental, and telecommunications. He is an alumnus of IMD Switzerland and also a seed consultant with Stanford University, USA, where he's provided the opportunity to work remotely with successful companies in West Africa on short-term projects as part of his contribution in supporting the vision of Stanford University to improve the economic prosperity for African businesses. He was trained on Banner Scorecard in UAE by Palladium, an organization founded by Drs. David Norton and Robert Kaplan, the brains behind Banner Scorecard methodology for managing performance. He is a certified human resource management professional HRMP, now known as SPHRI, by the Human Resources Certification Institute. He's a certified talent economics by Salvo, based in Singapore, and also a certified facilitator by Deloitte, South Africa. He is also a certified change management professional by Prosky, the leading change management organization in the world. He was invited in 2014 to Dubai by the Association of Change Management Professionals as part of the body of examiners to set questions for a new professional certification. He's a regular facilitator and speaker in conferences and trainings across Nigeria. He's passionate about people and the power to leverage human capital for business success. He has created several initiatives and platforms to develop, mentor, and coach emerging professionals. Tunde's success, passion for development of human capital led him to run an employability school for graduates in 2010. He thereafter ran a 12-week employability program on radio and ran a column in Business Day newspaper in 2011. In October 2019, he launched a digital magazine to provide access to professional development information and insights to business executives in Africa. He holds a first degree in mathematics from the University of Ibadan and has attended several relevant training programs, both within and outside the country. He's an alumnus of Harvard Business School Executive Education Program on driving organization performance through talent management. He's a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, Nigeria. He has authored 3 books, including The Game Changer, Intelligent Ways of Looking for a Job in a Competitive World. In 2018, he undertook a 7-month modular general management program with Gordon Institute of Business Science, University of Pretoria, South Africa, to gain skills on how to run successful organizations. He was the CEO of his business simulation team that won the Business Challenge competition during the program. Tunde's success personal values are encapsulated in the acronym SKY: Service, Knowledge, Impact, and Excellence. And with that, with a loud ovation, a thunderous applause, let's give a warm welcome to Tunde Success Oshideko. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. And thanks for joining us from wherever. It's really my pleasure to be here. That was a long introduction. I guess I need to have a briefer version. How you guys doing?
Before you jump right in, I need to say this.
Okay.
From your friends, one thing is clear, and I just want to reiterate that that's your passion for service, for impacting knowledge, and that was made evident in our first contact. As in, it was one of those moments that I had during this conference. I was like, okay, is this a God orchestrated something? The moment
Thank you.
So when you accepted, it was practically like 5 minutes. I was like, what's going on here? That really showed how much passion you truly have for. It's genuine passion. It's not just because you say it. It's actually genuine passion that I've seen in action, and I see in all the work you do in this. So thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
My pleasure. A pleasure. Well done. I mean, we should make the world a better place. We shouldn't introduce unnecessary difficulties, and it's my pleasure to be here. And thanks for inviting me, and thanks for the good work you're doing as well, contributing to the ecosystem. Okay. I trust you guys have been having a fantastic time. Some of my friends and colleagues have been speaking, and I've been hearing great feedback. Well done to the organizer once again. And today, I trust that we're going to have a great time. So when I was younger, when I attended training programs, the organizer will usually do a pre-test. So in learning, in learning evaluation, whether it's Kirkpatrick framework for evaluating learning, one of the visible ways to evaluate that learning has actually taken place is to do pre and post, right? Before and after. So before I get into all the things we're going to be discussing today, I want to do a pre-test, just to be sure where everybody is. And that is going to be done in a very fun way. So I'm sure you guys have heard of Kahoot. So please, could you log in to Kahoot, go to kahoot.it, kahoot.it, right? You will see the pin. The pin is on the screen. Just go to your browser and go to www.kahoot.it. It will ask you for a pin, and then the pin is 336706. You don't need to download the app, all right? Just on your browser, quickly, let's have fun as we learn. Are you ready? Let me do it again. Yes, yeah, Slick is in. I love this. You need to get in the game to win the game. Don't stay on the sideline. Beautiful, nice. Nice, I have 3 players. I think we're about 17 at the moment or thereabouts. Let's get more people. When we get to 10 people, we'll start the game. Fantastic. Thank you. I have 4 players. Where are my 6 players? Even if you haven't done this before, just try, be adventurous. Yeah, 5 players. Yeah, 6. I need 4 more. We're gonna have fun as we learn. It's Sunday. Yeah, great, Becky. 2 more. Where are my 2 players? Great, all right. So now we can start. Oh, fantastic. So get ready. If you haven't played this before, I'm going to display, the next display you will see will be questions. And on your phone, you'll be required to choose the correct answer. What you will see on your phone will be shapes, so you see shapes on your phone that correspond with shapes on the system. You pick the shape that represents your answer as displayed on the system. You won't see the question. So you need to look at the system, right? And then your phone about the same time, okay? And then it's fastest finger. You can know the answer, but it's important when you click on the answer, right? All right, so let's go. Okay, the attributes and capability that makes an organization achieve its aspirations consistently over short, mid, and long term is what? What do you think this is talking about? This is the definition, but what is it speaking about? What is it speaking to? Okay. Fantastic. So someone is still asking, how do I join in the Kahoot? Just go to www.kahoot.it on your browser, www.kahoot.it on your browser, and then it will ask you for a pin. The pin is 336706. That's the pin. All right, that's the pin. 336706. That's the pin. Great. All right, so let's see the face of the winner. Let's see the leaderboard. Okay, well, you could guess what the answer is. I mean, we're talking about building a culture of high performance organization. Okay, Avatar, congratulations, great one. All right, so let's see, next question. According to Harvard Business Review, what has the most impact on organizational performance? What do you think has the most impact on organizational performance? People got that. All right. Okay. I mean, we'll have interesting conversation. Let's see the leaderboard. Wow, Avatar is still leading. Fantastic. Wow. Becky, it's sad to see you drop, but I know you can catch up again. Let's see the next question. What are the primary management practices in the 4+2 formula for business success? I will explain the concept of 4+2 formula for business success. But just guess, what do you think are the primary practices? All right, fantastic. Strategy, education, culture, and structure. Okay, I'll explain that in a bit. Let's see the leaderboard. Oh my God, Avatar, what happened to you? Deal, nice, good to have you. Okay, so let's see. 90% of companies fail to execute strategy due to which barrier? What is the reason why 90% of organizations fail to execute strategy? Oh my God, Gracie, good to have you on board. All right, let's see, true or false, which of the following are culture anchors? Regularity, consequence, integration, leadership. Which of the following are culture anchors? So the following are true or false? Wow, we're just saying new winners. I love this team. Okay. Corporate alignment, holistic clarity, operational excellence, and engaged workforce are all what? What are these? What do you think all of these four may be speaking to? Oh my God! If you would just stop that. Did you guess or what? What's new? Oh my God. My son is here playing the game with me. My 6-year-old son, right? Okay, let's see. Oh my God, Avatar, fantastic. I love this. I love comeback stories. Great, great. All right, characteristics of high-performing team. Characteristics of high-performing team. Yeah, right. Okay, and then the final, oh my God, are your new winners. Now the final question. Let's see. Oh, sorry, it's not the final question. It takes more than one practice to build a culture of performance. Yes or no? Okay, it takes more than one practice to build a culture. All right, great. Ayo is still consolidating. And then the final question, it does not take time to build a culture of performance. It does not take time to build a culture of performance. Okay, so let's see the winner. In the third position is Gracie. Fantastic. Second, Peter. And the first place is Ayo. Congratulations. Okay, congratulations. Fantastic. Thanks for your participation. I trust that was also some learning. Okay, so let's get into our presentation. We've gone in and then we're back. Fifa, could you please excuse Daddy? I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so once again, we're here to talk about organizational culture. Specifically, how do you build a culture that allows the organization to perform? And I've been doing performance now for a while, especially at senior level. And so this is a very comfortable, area for me. You've gone through my profile, but this is just a pictorial trajectory, of my career, places I've been to in search of knowledge, University of Pretoria, Dubai, that was Italy. This is Italy. When I did my change management certification, my first change management certification. This is Russia as part of my GMD program. I've worked with VIP Consulting, I've worked with Leap Africa, I've worked with Access Bank, at the time was Intercontinental Bank. I currently work with MTN. I've done a program with IMD, I've done a program with Harvard Business School. The evidence of knowledge is action. So as one of the ways to put to practice the things that I've learned, I started an initiative, last year, which is basically a magazine, a management magazine, a Pan-African management magazine, focusing on telling the African story in the workplace. I've done a couple of things. I've written 3 books, and so on and so forth. And I trust that all of that would, show through as we proceed in this conversation. So I asked myself, really, what are we looking at? What are we focusing on in this conversation? And really is to define what we mean by the culture of high-performing organization, and then to look at the ingredients required to build. When you're trying to build a house, for example, you don't just build with one thing. You have your cement, you have your steel, you have, different things, and so the idea is not to be tempted into thinking it's only one thing that works. It takes more than the wheel of a car, to drive a car, to get a car, moving. And so as we think about culture, as we think about building our organization, we must keep a broader mind, so that we're sure that all the ingredients are in place. So let's start with the definition. And of course, from the game that we played, really, what does it mean when we say the culture of a high-performing organization? It's really the attributes and capability that make an organization to achieve its aspiration, make an organization to achieve its aspiration. This aspiration can be anything. It can be financial aspiration, in the case of most, for-profit businesses. It can be impact aspiration in terms of, for non-governmental organization or even government, but the idea is that there is something, there's an attribute and capability that helps an organization to achieve its aspiration consistently, the thing about culture is that you can't have a culture without consistency. Culture is not something you do once in a while. It is that thing that allows you to consistently, deliver over the short term, mid-term, and then long term. And the implication of this definition is that culture is actually a capability, is an organizational capability. Culture is an organizational capability. And if you ask yourself, your culture can either be a strong capability or it can be a weak capability, but culture itself as a concept is is a capability. And what that is saying actually is that there is something that helps, as we talk about organizations, some of these things can also apply to individuals. There is something that controls subconsciously how organizations work, or how people in an organization behave. Culture can apply to individual, it can apply to organization, it can also apply to a nation. Culture is that thing that is responsible for why individuals are successful and why individuals are not successful. I mean, if you speak with most successful people, they can tell you what is called the routine of greatness, the habits of greatness, the things that they do, now subconsciously. Maybe when they started, it was consciously, but now subconsciously, but they do these things regularly. And this behavior, these habits have now become the reason, why they are achieving, what they are achieving. And the same way it applies to successful people is the same way it applies to unsuccessful individual. They always say that before destiny is behavior. If you want to change your life, you need to start with changing your behavior. If your behaviors do not change, then your life may never change, because what determines destiny is our behavior. In the same way for an organization, there is a way people behave in an organization. And the way they behave in an organization is responsible, is a capability. And if it's a strong capability, if it's a strong capability, then it enables the organization to achieve its success. And the same thing for nations that are successful. There is a way they behave, there's a way they behave that allows them to become successful. So culture of high-performing organization is that attribute or capability that allows the organization to achieve its aspiration consistently, over the short, mid-term, and then a long term. So the next question is, what are the most impacts, or what has the most impact on organizational performance? And I'm saying this because sometimes, an organization does not exist in a vacuum. The performance of an organization does not exist in a vacuum. There are many factors that influence the performance of an organization. There are headwinds and there are tailwinds. There are external factors that affect the operation of a business, in such a way that it also influences whether the organization is performing, or not. And there are a couple of factors that influence the performance of an organization. But the question here is, which one has the most impact? If you did a Kahoot game with us, you will have an idea. But let me explain what I mean. One of the things that affect the performance of an organization is actually the economy. The general economy, the macro economical factors. And that's the reason why businesses are interested in what's going on in the economy, as an input into their own strategy, because you are not operating in a vacuum, so you're not in an island as a business, so take, for example, 2020, there's COVID-19. COVID-19 is affecting the economy of nations. Everybody is impacted, everybody is affected. So you cannot, your performance as an organization will be influenced by the economy, by what's going on in the economy, and the reason why this is important is also that you need to then know, if you were to if we're to attribute blames, if you were to attribute, if your people are not performing, for example, you need to look at their non-performance within the lenses of what's going on in the economy. So the economy is a factor when it comes to the performance of an organization. The second thing that influences the performance of an organization is the leader. Is the leader. If you have a great leader who is able to navigate, who is able to set a direction, who is able to course correct, which is able to provide effective leadership, you'll find that even though the economy is bad, your organization is still able to navigate through. Think about COVID-19 and its impact on the economy of nations. Some nations are handling this properly, or they're handling it more effectively than some other nation. If you think about what is happening in New Zealand, so the place of the leader can not be overemphasized. Okay, it also has an impact on the performance of an organization, such that even if the economy is doing well and you don't have a great leader, you will still not benefit from the impact of a great economy. The third factor that influences the performance of an organization is the industry. Still borrowing from what is happening in 2020 as a result of the pandemic. You'll find that while some industries are complaining, some industries are smiling. Communication industry, the ICT technology. Those guys are having a great time. But there are other industries who are badly affected. Cinemas are shut down. Anybody who is in entertainment is impacted, is affected by what is going on. So depending on the industry that you work, that also has an influence in what an organization is able to do in terms of performance. And of course, the final one is really the company, the organization. And the truth is that even if the economy is great, even if you have one great leader, even if you are operating in a growth sector, you will find out that how much value you are able to cultivate, you're able to extract, as a business entity is actually a function of the organization, how well run the organization itself is. The engine, that is working within an organization, is also very, 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 very important. And that's the reason why if you are a management student or you're an HR professional, we've got relevance, within the organization that we operate in, because our job is to help to build great organization. Beyond just having a strong leader, is to make sure that we have leadership pipeline, is to make sure that we have an engine that produces leaders, that clone great leaders, to make sure that we build the right capability, for our organization. So the point is that there are many factors that influence performance of an organization, and that the most critical is actually how the organization is well run. And if you live in Nigeria, for example, you will know that there are organizations in this country that are well run, and the difference is clear. Even when they play in certain sectors that are doing very well, we can see that they are well ahead of their peers because of the way the organization is being run, and so on and so forth. So it's really, really, really very, very important. My next slide is going to talk about what I call the first. Well, it's not what I call, it's called the 4+2 formula for business success. And you can do a Google search on that. Two Harvard professors did a 10-year research trying to determine amongst all the management practices in the world. I think they evaluated about 200 management practices. Now, that in management, there are a lot of practices. When your leaders attend conferences, they come back with knowledge and inspiration, and then you guys are doing another initiative because your boss has just arrived, from Harvard or from INSEAD, because there are all kinds of management practices, Lean Sigma, Balanced Scorecard, name them. And so they wanted to find out amongst all these management practices, which one really makes the difference, which one is important, for the sustainability of a successful organization. And so they interviewed successful organizations that have outlived their competition, that are doing very well, and have been doing very well for a long time. And then they came up with 8 management practices, 8, right? 8 that are consistent with the organizations that they surveyed, 8. Now, out of these 8, 4 are called primary management practices. That these are practices that successful organizations have invested in, and they do well with these 4, with these 4. And then any of the other 4, any 2 of the other 4, that's why it's called 4 plus 2, any 2 out of the other 4, that successful organizations that have outperformed their peers, are very good at these management practices. And then I'll just take you through what those management practices are. The first 4 is, the first one, in the primary practices is strategy, really is strategy. And that's why strategy is such an important, subject, for businesses, strategy. Strategy is, bridging the gap between where you are and where you like to be. Strategy is bringing the gap between your possibilities and your reality. Strategy is, how do you want to win in the market? What unique choices are you making as a business entity, leveraging on your strength, to capture value, and an organization that invests in strategy clarity anytime, any day, outperforms its competition. If you take the example of GT Bank, for example, and you imagine some of the things that GT Bank is doing, that are not even related to banking, building an e-commerce ecosystem, long ago, yet it's not an e-commerce platform, sponsoring fashion shows and so on and so forth. All of that is pouring out from a strategic imperatives. So some of those things that they are doing, they're not doing them because they are nice to be done, and they're not doing them because they are copying somebody. This is the decision that we are making, ahead of the ahead of the future. This is where we are. This is where we like to be. And in order for us to get to where we like to be, what are the steps that we must take? So successful organizations, the organizations that invest in strategy clarity, they are clear about what they want to do. They are clear about how they want to win, and they are very focused, because the thing about strategy is that, the moment you decide that this is your strategy, it means that you are blind to everything else going on around you. So successful organizations are strategy-focused organizations, and strategy-focused organizations are organizations, that have a focus, a definite focus of how they want to win, in the long term. The next one will be execution. So it's okay to have a great strategy. In fact, in management, the conversation is around a badly executed great strategy, or a badly executed great strategy, or a weak strategy that is greatly executed. Which one gives you more value? And I think that execution any day, anytime is really a game changer. If you've got all of those strategy, if your organization has clarity in terms of your vision, in terms of where you are, in terms of your values, and you are not doing anything, you don't have execution capability, to still remain a plan. Someone says that one action is better than 10,000 intentions. Organizations that execute any day, anytime will always outperforms its competition, right? And the third practice is culture. Culture. So when we sometimes when we have conversations with business leaders, and you're talking about things around culture, it sounds like a soft concept, but the point is that, this soft thing, are responsible for some of the hard results that organizations get, so culture is, culture is culture. Culture is, is intangible, but it's like the DNA responsible for how organizations behave the way that they behave. And of course, I've said a lot about culture in my earlier slide. The next management practice is structure. Structure. How is the organization organized, to deliver value? And every time, of course, there is a change in your strategy, there is a change in your structure. Your structure is designed to respond to your strategy. There are, most people have a job today because of the strategy of the organization. If the strategy of the organization changes, certain jobs may no longer be relevant anymore. Certain jobs may no longer be relevant anymore. So if you don't pay attention to your structure in terms of who is responsible for what, in terms of how people are able to collaborate, in terms of clarity around what individuals are meant to be done, then accountability becomes a problem. If I'm not sure that this is my job, then it means that I won't be accountable for it. And anybody can do my job, I can do anybody's job, and then that can affect collaboration within the organization. So paying attention to organizational design, which is where structure comes in, is one of the winning practices, of successful organizations. So these four are really, really very important. Successful organizations master these four, and if you invest time, energy on other things, and you're not focusing on these four, you'll find that your organization may not be delivering performance. You'll not be delivering on your aspiration, in terms of financial and non-financial, outcomes that an organization desire. And then the last four, the research says that, they then specialize in any two amongst the last four, which includes leadership, and this is not just talking about one strong individual. This is talking about having a machine that produces great leaders, having a leadership pipeline within your organization. Of course, talent, hiring great talent, because there's a difference between talent and non-talent, if you understand what I'm talking about. The next one would then be innovation. Successful organizations invest in innovation, and of course growth, and this can be natural growth, either organic growth or inorganic growth, by way of merger and acquisition, or just growing, organically. So these are practices that also affect whether an organization is able to perform, or not, okay, at a very strategic level. The next one is then talking about execution, because as a performance expert, the truth is strategy must turn into execution. It is when we translate strategy, it is when we execute strategy that we then have performance, right? Strategy is a plan at the basic level. It's a plan, long-term, mid-term, a plan. When we have a plan and we're able to execute the plan, then the plan turns into results, turns into performance, okay? Now, there's a research by Dr. Kaplan and Knowlton that says that 90% of organizations fail to execute strategy. 90% of organizations fail to execute strategy. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. This means that, that the potential to turn organizations into successful organizations, that potential is very huge, very huge. And what this just reminds me of is when a pilot flies a plane, from Lagos to Dubai, you would know that, most times what the pilot is trying to do is to rescue the plane from distraction, from derailing, if you know what I mean. There are winds pulling, the pilot here and there, that when a pilot sets a destination, the plane doesn't just go in that direction, most times, the pilot has to do what is called course correction, most of the time, so 90% of organizations fail to execute strategy. You may have attended strategy session at the beginning of the year, or even, late last year, and or your organization has decided that, this is the direction we're going in 2020, 2021, 2022, that is what is discovered is that 90% of organizations don't even keep faith, with what they've said they will do, and that's huge opportunity. All right. Now, why is this the case? Because if you don't execute your strategy, there'll be no performance. There'll be no performance. So all of them are related to building the culture of a high-performing organization. Now, the first barrier to strategy execution is the vision barrier. And this says that only 5% of workforce understands the strategy. If you walk into an organization and ask them, what is the organization's strategy? You'd be amazed how many people don't even understand the strategy of the organization. 5% of the workforce understands the strategy. All right. How do you understand? How do you implement something you don't understand? Most strategy sessions, most attendants or participants at a strategy session are senior people, right? Senior people go out, they go to 4 Point Sheraton or go to Epe Resorts, or go to, wherever, they go to offsite. Right? Sit down for 3 days, deliberate, brainstorm, bring in experts, bring in all the analysis, all the data, and then we then make a decision as an organization. When senior people are doing that, the younger people are not in the room. And it is the younger people who execute strategy. So if the people who are meant to execute the strategy do not understand the strategy, then how do you translate the strategy into results? So understanding the strategy of the organization is important, for the business. And I'll be surprised if there are organizations that even hide their strategy from their people because they are afraid that their people may sell them out, or their people may sell them out to the competition, or their people may do something, on towards, with the strategy. It will be ridiculous, because the point is that why have somebody in your organization that you can't trust? So the point is that if people don't understand your strategy, they cannot help you achieve the strategy, and your strategy does not turn into, if your strategy is not executed, then there's no performance. Okay. The next one is, let me take the people barrier. The next one is people barrier. And people barrier says only 25% of managers have incentives linked to strategy. Only 25% of managers have incentives linked to strategy. What this means is that, someone says the biggest radio station in the world, is called WIIFM. You know what that means? It means, what is the need for me? Right? Everybody wants to know what is the need for them. If we translate this strategy, this plan, if we turn it into reality, what is the need for me? Because if there's nothing in it for me, why should I bother? So in designing your strategy, in communicating your strategy, organizations must also communicate the incentive. There must be incentive linked to the achievement of the strategy. And that's where the concept of profit sharing comes in, or bonus incentive comes in. If you don't have any of those things, why should your people bother? They'll just do the minimum. They'll do what they are paid to do. They'll do the minimum and then they get out. So you cannot, the idea of an organization is that it's also a wealth creating vehicle. A business creates wealth for the ecosystem. And everybody who has contributed to helping to create the wealth must also benefit from the wealth. Because if there is no incentive, there'll be no performance. So incentive must be linked to strategy. Okay, let's talk about the resource barrier. It says 60% of organizations don't link budget to strategy. And this is really very ridiculous. You know how organizations will do what is called budgeting. They will pass around the Excel sheet and tell everybody, okay, what do you need for 2021? They'll do that. Let's say they'll do that in July. They'll send out a list. Okay, what do you need for 2021? Everybody will say, oh, I need a photocopier machine, I need a printer, I need to get whatever. They'll put all of those things together. Then they will ask you to come and defend. Then you will defend. You defend in August. Then in October, you will now be going out for strategy session. I don't get it. On what basis did you indicate the things you would need for 2021 without having a strategy session, without discussing what the year ahead would be and what are the requirements, to make sure that you capture value. What are those requirements? And then budget for them. It should be strategy session first before budgeting. You need to strategize first and then put your money where your mouth is. But some organizations do it the other way. Budgeting is an operational, is a cost containment measure. Then you now have strategy. Then after your strategy, you now come up with new lists. Then you now, if your management is kind enough, they will now do extra budgetary allocation for things that are coming from your strategy session. It shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be. You should be funding your strategy. So it should be strategy first before budgeting, not budgeting first. Not those processes have to be integrated. It can't be two separate processes happening at different times. All right. And it's a 60% of organizations, 60% don't link budget to strategy. Okay. And then, of course, time management barrier, which says that 85% of executive teams spend less than 1 hour per month discussing strategy. From the example of a pilot trying to course correct in trying to fly a plane from Lagos to Dubai, right? You've got to spend time discussing your strategy on an ongoing basis. You cannot have strategy session in December 2019, and then that's the last time you ever discussed the outcome of all the plans that you came up with. You've got to spend time. The executive will have to be spending time on the strategy. Are we still on track? Because for most times, most plans are based on assumptions. And as you move closer to the timing of your execution, the assumptions may change. So if you're not regularly discussing your strategy, you will not be able to make the necessary correction as quickly as possible, right? So these are some of the barriers to execution of strategy for most organizations. And it doesn't matter what else you are doing. If you're not focusing on each of these barriers, and for example, making sure that your people understand your strategy, right? Understand the vision of the organization, understand why we are doing what we are doing as an organization, right? If there is no incentive linked to your strategy, that if this strategy becomes successful, this is your share of the pie. And there are individuals who work for organizations that are successful, and they themselves are successful. You know why? Because they contributed to creating the value, and incentives were linked to the strategy. All right, incentives were linked to the strategy. Okay. And then, of course, resource barrier, making sure that you link your budgeting with your strategy, planning or alignment sessions, and of course, making sure that operationally your leaders are spending time looking at your strategy, on an ongoing basis. Once you are able to deal with all of this, I'm sure you'll not be amongst the 90% that fail to execute their strategy. All right. So let's talk about cultural anchors. What are the things that represent? What are the things? How do we embed a culture within an organization? How do we make something a way of life? Within an organization. Okay. And the first anchor is what I call regularity. The frequency of what you do. Culture is not something you do once in a while. Culture is something you do all the time, right? So the frequency of performance review, excuse me, please. The frequency of your performance review. And this is one of the things that the banks, and of course my organization do very well. Banks have MPPR, monthly performance review, where they are discussing the performance of the organization. Where are we? This is your target. Where are you? Where are we? What must we do? And they are doing that on a regular basis. All right, regular basis. That's how you know organizations that are performance focused. That's how you know an organization that has a culture of performance, right? The frequency. Even at an individual level, the frequency of performance conversation between line managers and employee is absolute. Without coercion, without pressure. Line managers are discussing every time you get into a meeting, you are discussing discussing performance, the frequency. How often do you discuss performance? How often do line managers and employees discuss performance? How often do business leaders discuss the performance of the organization? The regularity. How often do we communicate the targets of the organization, the aspiration of the organization, the regularity? These are the things that help to embed a culture within an organization. All right. And then how often you are able to course correct, as things change, you are communicating the changes, and then you are making the necessary adjustments, based on what is happening within the organization. So for example, 2020 is such an iconic year, for everybody, right? If there were certain things you wanted to do at the beginning of the year, a performance, an organization with a culture of performance, by now, they will have course corrected. Guys, we're planning to go in this direction. We're not going in this direction anymore because of X, Y, Z. This is now the new direction. We are course correcting and nobody is grumbling. Why? Because they are used to this. They are used to this. All right, they're used to this. And of course, the next one is consequence. Really, culture is what you either, culture is what you reward or what you punish. Culture is what you reward or what you punish. If people are not doing well, is there a consequence? If there is no consequence, then why should they do well? In fact, when you don't punish non-performance, you discourage great performance. If people are doing well, is there consequence? That's where pay for performance comes in. Is there consequence? So there has to be consequence. If there's no consequence, everybody will do the way they like. They will do as they like. All right. So it has to be clear to everybody that, what, if you do well, this is the reward. It has to be clear. It can't be something hidden. It can't be something you hide. You don't hide culture. And if you don't do well, it also has to be clear to everybody that these are the consequences. And all of these things must be communicated. You can't have a culture that is not communicated. Okay, so consequence is one of the ways in which you embed a culture within an organization. If there's no consequence, regardless of who is involved, if there's no consequence, then there's no incentive, for that thing to become a way of life. All right, and then the next one is integration. Is integration, meaning that your processes cannot be disjointed. Your processes have to be integrated, right? You want to build a culture of high performance. You must be hiring for high performance. You must be hiring high performance. You can't just be hiring anyhow, right? And this also dovetails into what your employee value proposition is as an organization, because the truth is that there is a book called The Portability of Talent, and that book says that when a talent moves from company A to company B, right, a talent, somebody who is doing well, moves from company A to company B, there's no guarantee that when they get to company B they will perform, because there's an element of the capability of the organization that enables them to perform. And at the moment they leave that organization, right, to another organization, if that capability is absent, they will fail. So the reason why people perform is not 100% tied to their own individual competence. If you use our political terrain as an example, one governor in Lagos State did very well in Lagos State, moved to the central, it was a struggle. Right? At least not, in the way that everybody expected. Why? Because of so many reasons that are beyond the individual. All right. So organizations must build capability within itself that allows people to perform. And when you are advertising your vacancies, it's not everybody who can do well in your organization. So your processes have to be integrated. And part of the integration is that in your employer branding, it has to be clear to people the kind of individuals who can do well in your organization. I mean, when I was in the bank, I worked with Intercontinental Bank, for about 2 years. And I mean, fantastic organization, in terms of welfare, but a lot of pressure. They will pressure you, pressure you. The desire for success was very strong. You couldn't survive if you were laid back. So we hired somebody from, we hired a guy from another bank, yes, we hired, I think a guy left us for GT Bank. And in GT Bank at the time, I don't know much about them, now. At the time, GT Bank was not an aggressive environment compared to Intercontinental Bank. In GT Bank at the time, they were asking you, they measure your success by how much progress you are making. So if you were given a bad account worth, say, ₦1 billion, bad debt, they will measure your success by how you are able to reduce the bad debt, the percentage of reduction of your bad debt. That's how you were measured. Very cool environment, very calm environment. But this guy was coming from an environment that was very aggressive, where reducing your bad debt was not enough. It is your success was measured by profit. How much profit have you made? Have you turned around the branch in 6 months? That's how people were measured and how people survived. So this guy went into a cooler environment where there was no pressure, and so when he would make suggestions to his leaders, oh, let's do this. They would just tell him, calm down, mommy, calm down. You know what? The guy couldn't survive. He had to leave GT Bank for another aggressive environment kind of organization because he couldn't survive, right? So it's not everybody who can survive in your organization. And therefore, the onus is on you to let people know when you advertise, let them know the kind of environment in which they are coming so that you are attracting the right kind of people who can survive, who can fit into your organization. So your recruitment process has to be linked with how do you develop people? Do you develop people for performance? Your personal development program, your PDP or professional development program, are they tied to helping people to perform? Right? Or just having people, or just doing it because you have to do remittance to ITF? You see, an organization can send all its staff on training, but those trainings do not help the organization to perform because in the first instance, proper strategic need analysis was not done. How do you manage your people? You hire great talent, but they are managed by stupid managers because you don't have a people management framework in place that codifies how talent should be managed in the organization. So there has to be all of that integration. It can't just be, oh, this is a high-performing organization. All that we're doing is pay for performance. We give big bonus and that's all. It can't be. Everything has to be integrated for efficiency, for effectiveness, right? And of course, the last one is leadership. I mean, how do we discuss culture without the behavior of the leaders? Leaders must role model performance. Leaders must role model performance. Leaders must be measured. Their performance must be measured. Their own non-performance must be sanctioned. All right? And they've got to be visible sponsorship. Leaders must be communicating targets to employees. Leaders must be communicating performance to employees. It can't be HR just sending email on performance. Leaders have to be discussing performance. This is where we are. This is how far we've gone. This is what we've achieved. This is important to us, right? So this is how you build a culture, because what you are saying is the tone from the top has to fit in the culture we're trying to build. You can't have a leader who doesn't give a damn about whether people are performing or not, because when people don't perform, they run to the leader, right? They run to the leader and then the leader excuses their non-performance. You can't build a culture of high performance like that. Everybody has to be subject to the same rule. And you will have different rules when you don't have leadership visibility of the kind of culture we're trying to build as an organization. Okay? Now, the next one is performance drivers. You know, culture, anchors, and performance drivers. This is how you build a culture of high performance. Let me start with the statistics. There's a statistic that says that only 51% of organizations even invest in corporate alignment. That's almost half of the organizations that were surveyed, corporate alignment. Another research says that 53% of employees who have role clarity achieve efficiency. When people are clear about what they need to do, they don't waste time. That's efficiency. They don't waste time. They don't waste resource. The level of rework is reduced because people are clear. They are clear about what they need to do. They are clear about where the organization is going. Operational excellence, 60% of employee-related costs, right, is reduced when you deploy the appropriate technology. You achieve 60% of cost reduction when you deploy the appropriate technology. And finally, according to Gallup, organizations that have engaged workforce are 21% more profitable than organizations that don't have engaged workforce, right? That you can win on the basis of whether your people are engaged or not. An organization can win. Let's start with corporate alignment. What's corporate alignment? According to CIPD, performance management is a holistic process that ensures that organizational objectives or that employees' contribution or employees' efforts are helping to contribute to organizational objective. That's how CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personal Development in the UK, define performance management. That it's a process that ensures that what employees are doing is helping the organization to achieve its objective. That's alignment. That's alignment. An organization can be going to Kano and employees are going to Badagry, two different directions. And you can hire fantastic people, pay them a lot of money, and yet they are disconnected from your vision. They are disconnected from your target as an organization. You must invest in corporate alignment. Is everybody in the same ship? Are we going in the same direction? What is the organization trying to achieve? What is our target? What are the performance metrics of the organization? In some organizations, only the senior people know what the performance metrics of the organization is. How do we define performance? How do we define an A? How do we define a B? How do we define a C in an examination? Some organizations have not defined all of that. Some employees don't even know the marking scheme. They don't even know the questions. What questions are they going to be asked? Because there's no corporate alignment. Everybody must know what the metrics of the organizations, what the important metrics of the organization is. Everybody must know. What does performance mean to us as an organization? And how does what I do as an employee, how does it contribute to what the organization is trying to do? That alignment has to be strong. You've got to invest in that. Remember that according to the law, when you hire somebody, it's your job to give them work to do. And if you hire someone and they don't have work to do, it's your loss. You can't blame the employee. So you can hire brilliant people and then you are not aligning them to the direction that you are going. You have to align. You have to tell them this is where we're going to. You must invest in that alignment. And I mentioned earlier that strategy is developed by senior people. Execution is largely done by the rest of the employees. And so when there is no alignment, there's no performance. Organizations must invest in corporate alignment. It must be clear that all of us are on the same page. When they ask you, what are the 5 metrics the organization is measuring as indication of performance, all your employees must know. That's how you know whether everybody's aligned. And what they do at their own individual level must be speaking to those big corporate KPIs. All right? Holistic clarity. You see, the beginning of non-performance is lack of clarity of expectation. If expectations are not communicated, if people don't know what is expected of them, then how do they perform? Performance is expectation met. So if there is no clarity of expectation, then there will be no performance. And we can make the assumption that, our managers are clear, everybody is clear. You need to be clearer. You need to be clearer. You need to be clear about a couple of things. Number one, what's the big picture for us as an organization? What are we trying to achieve? It has to be clear. How do we measure performance? It has to be clear. There are different performance methodology, and please don't copy what others are doing without understanding their context. There are different performance methodology. There is management by objective. There is balanced scorecard. There is agile performance system. There's key performance area or key performance results. There are different methodologies. And the interesting thing is that all of these methodologies have their own languages. But sometimes in business, we combine everything together, we mix everything together because we don't really understand that those methodologies are different. And then an organization, we have 360-degree. An organization must make a strategic decision as to which one we want to use, for what purpose. All right, all of those things have to be clear. What are performance management philosophy? Why do we manage performance? Are we managing performance for development? Are we managing it for evaluation? Are we managing it for reward? What exactly is the pillar of our performance management philosophy? That has to be clear to everybody. It has to be clear to everybody. How does it help us? The way we're managing performance, how does it help us as an organization? How fit for purpose is it? Right? So all of those have to be clear to people. And then, of course, operational excellence. In other words, these things have to be easy. Have to be easy. And there's no better way to explain operational excellence other than the deployment of a software that automates your processes. Automate your processes in a way that is simple, easy for people to use. Even if you use Excel to manage individual performance, make sure that it is very simple. People understand it. It's not cumbersome. It doesn't have to be complex to make sense. Right? What is clear is what must people do? What is performance standard? What are the grid? How do we measure it? We don't have to have 30 KPIs in an Excel for an individual. Just because we must measure everything. We don't have to measure everything. And that's where strategy comes in. Strategy is focusing on what is important. You don't have to measure everything, because not everything counts. Law of Pareto, 80-20 principle. Only 20% of the things that you do give you 80% of the results that you have. All right, operational excellence. And of course, engage workforce. You cannot, how do you have a performing engine within an organization when your people are not engaged? By engaged, I mean that your employees absolutely love your organization. Your employees will go extra mile for your organization. Your employees' hearts are with the organization. Your employees are treated as human beings. They know that they are human beings. They know that their voice counts. They know that you care about what they think. They see themselves as stakeholders. How can you not be bothered how engaged your people are? When it comes to performance, there are two C's. Two C's. When it comes to performance or contribution, the first one is competence. We measure competence when people come for interview. We ask them competence-based questions, competence-based interview, right? What we fail to assess is commitment. And it is commitment that unlocks competence. Somebody can have the skill to do something, but they are not willing to do it. And all that you are getting is the minimum. All that you're getting is minimum. How do you get the maximum from your people? It's through their commitment, and commitment cannot be demanded. Commitment can only be earned. You can't force commitment. People give their commitment. So you must have engagement strategy. You must have an employee engagement strategy that tells your people that their voice counts, that tells their people that they are stakeholders in this venture, that tells your people that you care about what they think, you care about their voice. A performing organization is an organization that invests in employee engagement. Let me tell you, it's possible to have performance without engagement, but it's not sustainable. You can force performance from people, force it, but you can only force it for so long. You can't force it forever. You can't have sustainable performance without employee engagement. You can't force people to be committed. They will be committed for now because they've got a job to do and there's no any other job to go to, but it's only for a while. Imagine what else, how much more you would get if they were committed. So an organization must invest in employee engagement, right? You must care about what your people think. You must care about where their heart lies. You must care about their purpose. There has to be alignment of purpose, and you must care. You must care about what else are they interested in that is even outside of work. But if something goes wrong with it, it will affect their work. You must be concerned about their purpose, concerned about their passion. You must be. There is a business imperative. It may sound like, oh, boy, has to just do business. You know, it's all work and nothing else. It's not all work. It's not all work. If you want to get the most from your people, it's not all work. All right? It's not all work. Okay? Now, my final slide as we land this plane. What are the characteristics of high-performing organization or high-performance team? The first one is that they set big goals. Big goals. Big goals. We want to go to the moon. That's a big goal. A high-performing organization, a high-performing team sets big, audacious goals. It doesn't have to be many, but they've got goals. Remember, if you don't set goals, you can't score one, right? Successful organizations are always setting new goals. And the thing about goals is that, you see, if you have high achievers on your team, big goals are motivations for them. Only small people are put off by big goals. Successful people want to know that they are investing their lives into something that is significant. Right? That's how people fulfill their potential. Okay? And setting big goals are raw materials, for organizational greatness. Without goals, you don't achieve greatness. And everybody wants to work for successful, great organization. Great organization. So high-performing organizations set big goals. Big goals. And the thing about goals is that until you try, you will never know what you're capable of doing. And when you try, you will never return to your original position. When you try, you stretch. And once you stretch for life. That's how you build a learning organization, because you're setting big goals. Okay? The second one is that successful organizations or high-performing organizations invest in capabilities. You got to invest. They said if you offer peanuts, you'll end up with monkeys. You want to hire good staff, but you don't want to pay. You've got to invest. It's capability. Invest in tools. Invest in tools. Invest in your culture. Invest in the skills of your people. You got to invest. So I characterize of high-performing team organizations, they invest in capability. And you see, when you invest, you don't reap returns immediately. You don't expect returns immediately. You invest and wait. There's an element of time. There's an element of waiting. But you must invest. Thirdly, so high-performing organizations balance short-term and long-term aspiration. Short-term gains and long-term aspiration, they balance it. Yes, we have a strategy for 5 years or 3 years, but we're not going to fold our hands and wait till 5 years to realize our vision, realize our strategy. On a yearly basis, we're doing something on a yearly basis. All right. And this has implication for a lot of things, including how we make decisions, the trade-off, the things we let go. Because you know what, guy, let it go now. In the future, we will repeat. Right? We'll repeat. It may seem like an opportunity now. If we take this, we go in a different direction. All right? You have to balance that. And of course, everything is performance. In a high-performing team, everything is performance. Everything is performance. You are having team meetings, we're discussing performance. We're having informal meetings, people are clear about, this is what we're going for. This is the amount of money we're trying to make. This is the number of customers we're trying to acquire. These are the processes we're trying to fix, right? Everybody is talking it, right? Because performance is everything. Performance is management. When you hire leaders to manage people, what is the end goal? The end goal is performance. So management is performance management. We're managing people to perform. So performance is everything. Is everything. And finally, a high-performing team cares for its people. Cares for the people, and its people are aware that they are cared for. All right? Care for them to the point that they have an ownership mentality. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot police people in 2020, especially if what people are doing is a knowledge-based work. You can't police people. But you know what? If people have a sense of ownership, they will do what they're supposed to do, and they will do it well. Right? So I think that this is the nice place to land the plane. I trust it's been a value-adding session for you. But let's play our Kahoots if you don't mind.
Fantastic.
Let me test our knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's do post assessment. All right, so let's do a post assessment Go to kahoot.it. The pin is 96441. Where are my players? Hey, Becky, welcome. This is a recovery opportunity for you. Where are my two players? Okay, shall we? Should I wait? Shall we? Okay. This is 128. We'll do 130. Once it's 130, we'll play the game. Remember that in business, there'll be headwinds, there'll be tailwinds, there'll be things that are outside of your control, you know, but it's your job to master all of that and make the best of a bad situation. The code is 96441. The code 96441. That's the code. It's Sunday afternoon, so we're having fun. One more minute. One more minute. Okay. One more minute. Okay, shall we now? All right. And the game starts now. Yeah, the game starts now. Same question. Great. The attributes and capability, yeah, that makes an organization to achieve its aspirations consistently over short, mid, and long term is all right, 17 people. Okay, let me see. 2 people missed that. 2. Maybe you didn't start with us. That's why you missed this. But let's see the winner. Slick. Right, Slick is leading. Next question. According to the research by Harvard Business Review, which one has the most impact on organizational performance? Great. Okay, let me see. Wow, 6. Let me see, guys, you joined the session late. Let's see the winner. Okay, Peter came up. We see you. Yeah, so seeing that the way it works is you need to be looking at the screen, at my screen, and then your phone at the same time. Look at the screen and your phone at the same time. You'll see the shape on the screen and the shape on your phone. You click on the one that represents the right answer. Okay, great. All right. 2. Yeah, Peter is still leading. Gracie, I see you. 90% of organizations fail to execute strategy due to which of these barriers? All of the above. Okay. Yeah, Peter is still holding on to his position. All the followings are culture anchors. True or false? Help you to embed a culture. All right, Dame or Dami, we see you. Peter is still leading. Corporate alignment, holistic clarity, operational excellence, and engaged workforce are all words. Sorry, all performance drivers. Sorry. Peter is still leading. Okay, characteristics of high performing team. of the above. Peter is the leading. Okay, true or false? It takes more than one practice to build a culture of performance. Takes more than one thing to build a culture. Right. Peter is the leader. The last question. It doesn't take time to build a culture of performance. It doesn't take time. Takes time to build anything. It takes time, man. It takes time. All right. So we must balance short-time orientation with long-time orientation. Ladies and gentlemen, and the leaderboard is in the third position is Gracie. Congratulations. And then Peter. Congratulations. Thank you, guys. All right, time for questions. Over to you, sir.
Fantastic. that was great, Nen, and that was fun, and that was awesome. Thank you so much for delivering an excellent presentation. I'm sure we learned a lot. Some of the feedback has been coming before the game. It was really awesome, I must say. Thank you so much for your time and sharing from your wealth of experience. We're grateful. So let's get some questions and then feedback also. Let's show some appreciation to the speaker for today. Great. It was really fun and interesting. Adedoyin says an amazing session. Charles says really awesome presentation. Obaseki Samuel says never disappointed as usual. Adeomi says glad I didn't miss this. Thank you, TS. Otsinu says thanks, Tunde Success, great presentation. Iberi says thank you, fantastic presentation, very engaging. Thank you. Keep them coming. Let's take some questions as well. For those watching on YouTube, please send in your questions through the comments, the chat box, and we'll take them here. I hope you guys still played the game on YouTube. It was really fun. And I can see some improvements in from the pre and the post test. So great, showed that you guys learned and paid attention. Okay, question from Obaseki Samuel. Which comes first, culture or strategy, and why? I think he asked this earlier. I don't know whether you the presentation addressed this, but
addressed it. Okay. I mean, you know, it's always the question we ask in HR: which comes first, people or strategy? You know, HR people, we are so in love with people that we think everything revolves around people. Strategy comes first. You know, I mean, you start a business, you must have a strategy, you know, that helps you to analyze the opportunities in the market, your own strength and your capability, your own weaknesses, the threats, you know, before you then come up with a plan. You know, some call it business plan. All of that must be in place first before you then even get the chance to exercise leadership, you know. But you know, so I think that explains it, you know, in terms of which one comes first. Is it strategy, Is it strategy or leadership? But if you were referring to the eight practices and why you have strategy and culture in the first, quadrant, okay, and the leadership, below. What he's saying is that, like I mentioned, strategy is important. You've got to have a plan. Some of you have a job today because of the strategy of the organization. You didn't have a job because your organization wanted to reduce the rate of unemployment in Nigeria. You have a job because your organization wanted to go in a particular direction, and then they had to make adjustment to your structure that then narrows down to the job, and then the job was advertised, and then you came, into the organization. So strategy first, and of course, if you have strategy, there's no execution. What's the point? And then you have culture, and then you have structure. Now, I think the question should be, because the research says that they master 4 things and then plus any 2 out of the 4. So leadership, could be one of the other things that you have. Leadership could be one of the other 2 that you have. But the point is that those 4 buckets that we've mentioned are critical. Critical, that even if you have a leader and you don't have strategy, you don't have a good culture, I mean, the case of Nigeria is what comes to mind, good people, good leaders, but there's no strategy, there's no culture, the structure is faulty, the culture is messed up. How much can a leader do, to make sure that the organization succeeds, or to make sure that the country succeeds? So that explains why those 4, are prioritized over the last 4. But again, it's a game of balance. It says 4 of these and 2, out of the next 4. Okay, yeah. So Otini is asking, can strategy be formed without leadership? Remember that, most businesses are started by an individual or 2 individuals, and that before you even get the chance to exercise leadership, over people, in quotes, the strategy must have been in place, So I want us to look at that quadrant from an holistic point of view. It's not just one thing, but some things are more important, than some things. I hope that helps.
Yeah, great, fantastic answer. I think that answers about 3 questions. Grace is asking, for performance drivers, is it compulsory that it has to be in the various percents mentioned?
For performance drivers, it wasn't about. I'm trying to understand which of the. In the performance drivers, talk about corporate alignment, talked about holistic clarity, we talked about operational excellence, and then we talked about engaged workforce, right? Those were not in any particular order. I mean, the percentages that we talked about are research-based outcomes, based on the number of organizations that were surveyed. So for corporate alignment, for example, the research says that only 51% of organizations invest in corporate alignment. It just means that half of their sample size didn't pay attention, to whether their employees are aligned or not, and so the insight from that research for us is that we need to pay attention, because you cannot take corporate alignment for granted. You can't assume that it is there. You need to, build system and structure around ensuring that everybody within the organization is aligned. So the 51% is just telling you that based on research that was carried out, half of the population sample, did that. For clarity, that you achieve based on certain research that was done. Employees that are clear about what they need to do achieve 51% in terms of efficiency. And that just makes sense. When you are clear about what you need to do, the level of rework that you do is reduced. You do it with speed. You gain time because you know what you're meant to do. So again, the insight is that we need to be sure that our managers are communicating effectively, communicating clarity to their employees, because when employees are not clear about what they're supposed to do, it can create inefficiency within the organization. And this can even be narrowed down to, do employees within the organization, do they have job description? Do they have a job profile? Do they have performance contracts, on a regular basis? Are they clear? Do they have ownership of their space because they are clear about what is expected of them? So that's what clarity is talking about. That if people are clear, they're going to spend less time, trying to get the job done. They're going to spend less time worrying, about so many things. So just make sure that your employees are clear. And I think the third one talks about operational excellency, that if you deploy a simple software to manage some of your HR activities, you can achieve 60% reduction, in costs, and so many other things, that may not necessarily be obvious, but we all know that investing in technology, it's powerful. Imagine if we were to have this class in a physical class, how much you will have spent, but thanks to Zoom. And then the final one is employee engagement. Most organizations invest heavily in employee engagements. I work for an organization that invests heavily on employee engagement, year in, year out. And the reason is because research has shown that for every increase in employee engagement level, there is a corresponding impact on your revenue. Everything we do in HR, not everything we do in HR affect the bottom line. Not everything, I must confess up front. But the one thing that if we do and get right would affect the bottom line of an organization is helping the engagement levels of employees, increase. If we do that, if employees are loving their organizations on a daily basis, if the employees are going extra mile for the organization because they believe in the organization, because they love the organization, right? The organization will feel the impact in its bottom line. They will attend to customers promptly. They will address customer with courtesy. They will win more customers for the organization. They will do their job on time. They won't steal from the organization, and so on and so forth. The organization will see the impact. And within the remit of what we do as HR professionals, we can help the organization to improve the engagement levels of our staff.
Great, thank you for that answer. Let me just take some comments from YouTube before the next questions. Abato Osuji says, great job, Tunde success. Segun Akiode says, awesome learning game. Mira Bello says, thank you so much, sir. Value adding indeed. Presentation was on point. Thank you all for your feedback. Thank you for joining on YouTube. Please send in your question if you have any, and we'll take them here. Next question says, thank you for this eye-opening, fun-filled, and awesome session. How can one begin the journey of restructuring or change management as an HR representative in an organization where there's no strategy, effective performance management, no defined culture, and so on? Wow.
Powerful question. I mean, the easy answer is to say, you know what, that would be a big challenge. But the reality also is that the darker it is, the more the opportunity to shine, for you, especially if you work in an organization where the leaders are open. I mean, one of the questions you need to ask yourself is, why is it that you don't have such practices within your organization, at the moment, right? Why is it that you don't have those practices? If the reason why you don't have is because the leaders don't believe in those practices, right? Then it will be an excellent task, for you to want to make sure that those practices are in place, right? But if the reason why those practices are not in place because the leaders haven't found someone who can make them happen, then fantastic, this is your opportunity to shine. And you as an individual, I mean, those areas that you mentioned are body of knowledge there are body of knowledge, right, in HR, performance management, change management, and so on and so forth. You need to invest in acquiring those capability or those competencies before you can then deploy them within your organization in a way that is fit for purpose. Because what you don't want to do is that you don't want to go and implement something that you only have half knowledge of and make a mess of it. Because what then happens is that you will not get the kind of result you should get. And once you don't get the kind of result that you should get, you can then discourage your leadership from even trying another time. So don't go and implement something that you don't have the capability to implement. Make sure that you acquire the skills first, and maybe even start with piloting, before you go full stream, so that you are managing the impact of that deployment. But like I said, you need to understand why the organization does not have all of those practices. Is it because your leaders don't believe in them, or they haven't found someone who can implement them? And if the latter is the case, it's an opportunity for you to shine. But make sure before you deploy, acquire the competence, before you do.
Great, thank you for that response. Let me take more questions here. Popola is asking, what is the key difference between industry and company?
Okay. I mean, industry is talking about, look at COVID. Industry is talking about, industries, banking, telecoms. I mean, those are industries. Oil and gas, manufacturing, those are industries. Company is talking about the organization itself. Organization itself.
It's related to the key impact to organization performance. What's the
so that's what I'm trying to explain. So take, for example, the impact of COVID-19 in 2020. Certain industries are impacted. Certain industries are benefiting. So IT organizations, communications organizations are benefiting. But within the communication industry, right, that are benefiting, not all communication organizations are benefiting at the same rate, right? Some organizations, I mean, we've heard of the share price of Zoom, zooming up, right? But Zoom is not the only teleconferencing company in the ICT sector, right? The way an organization is run, as a business, an organization exists within a sector, within an industry, right? So that's the difference. So even though there is a boom in a sector or in an industry, if your organization is not properly run, you will still not benefit. You have to run a proper organization, to be able to deliver performance relative to the wealth or the value, in the environment. Banking is a sector. GT Bank is an organization. ICT is a sector. MTN is an organization. That's the difference.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next question says, what tools are better used for measuring employee performance?
My brother or sister, there are there are all kinds of tools out there. Actually, there are all kinds of tools, right? But remember that a tool is a shadow of your substance. Before you get to using a tool, you first of all have to define what methodology are we using. How do we want to manage performance? You need to design your performance management architecture first before you then look for a tool that can help you mirror what you're trying to do, right? So forget about the tool. It is, you need to, and this is not a, you can't get a specific answer because different organizations have different strategy, different focus, different size that would influence how you manage performance, right? Once you define that, how do we want to manage performance? What is our performance management philosophy? Why do we want to manage performance? Do we want to manage performance so that we can develop people? Do we want to manage performance so that we can reward people? Do we want to manage performance so that we can punish people? Whatever, that has to be clear first. You then get to, okay, what kind of methodology do we want to use, to manage performance? Do we go the way of balanced scorecard? Do we go the way of 360 degree? Do we go the way of management by objective and so on and so forth? And why? Once you then cross that second audio, the next audio will then be, so what kind of technology can help us, mirror the things that we want, implement that. And there are all kinds of technologies out there, both in the cloud and that. So the technology is the last thing to worry about. It's even to get your strategy right before you then look for technology.
Great. Thank you for that. Last question here from Uchena. Mr. Tunde, great teaching, but as I have seen in your teaching, I want to ask if this applies to locally owned companies or SMEs. I doubt, because it is totally different game.
The challenge is that, and that's one of the things I'm passionate about. How can small businesses become big, right? There's a science to success, and if small businesses, and I do consult for small businesses, if a small business decides to do the right thing, right, it will soon become big. That's where growth comes from. You build capability, then opportunities show up, and then you're able to take advantage of the opportunity. There is nothing that we have said here that does not apply to small businesses. Is it strategy? You need to have a strategy. Is it culture? You need to build a culture. You need to let people know how they should behave within your small business, right? You cannot be coming late as a small business owner and expect your workers to arrive on time, and you then think that it will work. It will not work. You will become the shadow of the culture of the organization. So leadership is important, right? Structure is also important. Even though it's a small organization and you don't have the luxury of hiring everybody, that you need, to deliver value, you can outsource certain things, because they are cheaper to outsource. And then even merge roles together. So maybe in a big organization, somebody will be in charge of sales, somebody will be in charge of marketing. But in a small businesses, you can combine sales and marketing together, right? But the guy who is doing sales and marketing must know that this is my job by way of a job profile, right? So if you do the right thing as a small business, you will grow to become a big business, But again, the challenge with small businesses in this part of the world is that sometimes our promoters are narrow-minded, and maybe sometimes the reason why people started the business in the first instance is just to survive. You know what? I just want to be able to take care of my family, and now my business is making enough money from taking care of my family. So really, I don't care whether my staff are happy. I don't care whether they're engaged, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then those businesses don't survive one generation or two generations. So there is nothing we have shared here that is not applicable to any business size. What you need to do is in application, you contextualize it, in application, but it applies to everybody.
Thank you very much. Just before we take another question, I'd just like to encourage us all to connect with the speakers, Sundays successor Chidek on LinkedIn, and other speakers that we have here. Share your key learnings with us. Connect with the Adonam Consulting company page as well on LinkedIn, and share with us your key learnings from all these sessions. We would really love to get your feedback, and also just to share and put it out there. So for others that would love to join us, will join our following session. So please just let us know what you've learned. Share with us and the speakers on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. I have one more question here. Might be the final question. Okay, so Kemisola Kasadi is asking, thanks for this session. Please, what are those key metrics and KPIs that HR department should be with?
So again, I can give you some quick responses like staff cost ratio, which is the ratio between your staff cost and your revenue. For everyone that you bring into the organization, how much revenue is the organization getting from them? Engagement levels. What's engagement levels within your organization? Like I mentioned to you, one of the things that we do, it's not everything we do in HR that help or that impact the bottom line directly, right? Some of the things we do are activities that we hope would impact on certain business processes that would then impact bottom line. But one of the ones that research has established has impact on bottom line is engagement level. So one of the KPIs that any HR function must have is how engaged are your staff, So you must be measuring it to know whether it's going up or it's going down. Those are very strategic ones. There are very operational ones, per function, your recruitment, what are the key metrics in your recruitment? Are you recruiting the right people? Are you recruiting them on time? And so on and so forth. But what I want to say to you is that even metrics itself is not something that you pluck and use. You don't go online and pluck metrics and then start using. KPIs are meant to solve problems, right? KPIs are not an end in themselves. They are meant to solve problems. So if in your team, you look at the problem you're currently having, right? Assuming the problem is retention, people are not staying within the organization, right? And you have deployed, and then you have a plan to deploy all kinds of retention strategies to help you address that problem. Then you need to set KPIs around that problem, right? Now, if your organization is so fantastic, like some oil and gas that people don't want to go, it means that retention is not your problem. So you cannot keep retention, attrition as a KPI and be measuring what? People are not going, so it's not a problem. So you use KPIs to solve business problems. So a more strategic answer to your question is that what metrics that HR should use depends on what problem HR is trying to solve in a given time, because problems evolve. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. It's been great having you for the past. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the fun learning game. Thank you for your awesome delivery, for sharing. The feedback has been amazing, I must say. And please let us keep the feedback coming. Let's continue the conversation on LinkedIn. I shared the link to the event page on LinkedIn in the chat session. So you can follow that link and just let us know how this session was. But for me, it was really great and fantastic. Thank you so much. Sorry, call came through. So our next session will be starting in about an hour. We'll be looking at emerging challenges and growth mindset for HR leaders. It will be taken by Stella Obialo. That session has been pre-approved for 3 business credits if you hold the tHRive certification from HRCI. So be sure to join that. And then we'll be looking forward to having you all here again for another awesome experience. Thank you once again. See you by 3.